Hey, chapter 117 is one of the most emotionally provocative chapters that we've gotten in this series, and it's also one of the most informative. I was genuinely amazed to see these old school samurai already finding a way to form connections with these kaiju cells and use it to their advantage in this fight against kaiju. At the same time, it was sad to see everything that was taken from these samurai warriors by the Daikaiju of the Meireki era. We just met these samurai and I felt awful seeing their families taken from them, seeing where they live being completely destroyed, seeing their comrades killed, and just seeing the general amount of shame that they had because they were too weak to fight against this Daikaiju, dog. They felt so small and so weak that all of their souls amalgamated into what we see as Kaiju number 8, something that is powerless like an insect. Yet the hate that fuels this kaiju is so strong that Kafka is one of the strongest kaiju we've seen in this series and what modern mankind knows. So now, knowing what we know, not only does Kafka have to go out and beat this Daikaiju of the Meireki era for Mina, Reno, all his homies in the defense force, but he also needs to finish off this 100+ year war where even Hoshina's ancestors, Narumi's ancestors, were affected from this Daikaiju. Kafka is going to be the person that saves not only his timeline, but avenges the timeline from before, and we'll talk about that in this video. So let's get into it. So chapter 117 starts off with the ghost samurai putting Kafka in a flashback, and they go all the way back to the Meireki era whenever that Daikaiju first made its appearance. Kafka is smack dab in the middle of the front lines, and he is wondering what the heck is going on. A bunch of people are all dressed up in samurai armor, and they are charging towards this huge Daikaiju and looking at Kafka asking, "Why are your feet stuck in the mud, bro? You need to start charging towards this thing too." And Kafka finally puts two and two together that he is currently on an ancient battlefield watching what happened. People are yelling charge, and he looks down at his hands and says, how are we supposed to fight using this primitive stuff? Until he realizes that everything that he has on has all been derived from kaiju. And that was amazing to see, bro. He's talked about how he learned from historical textbooks that humans back in the day bonded directly with kaiju's bodies by using parasitic kaiju tissue as a medium. So they were able to draw out power from these old kaiju cells, but not quite as much as what new technology allows these Japan Defense Force soldiers to do. And on top of that, this was a much higher strain on the body than what current Defense Force suits put on the body. So you can kind of see how technology has really helped humans fight against kaiju, not only from a firepower perspective, but also taking the risk away from humans in order to utilize these kaiju fibers. It was really dope, and it gets into that science fiction part of this manga, which we don't always get all the time, right? I kind of love nerding out in that aspect, but to know that everything that they were using, the armor, the sandals, the weapons, they were all derived from kaiju cells, just shows how much they were more advanced than what we thought they were. Yes, they were primitive, but they figured out things just because naturally that's what you gotta do, right? Kafka keeps on fighting alongside all of these soldiers until finally he falls on the ground and Hoshina's ancestor pops up next to Kafka and is like, dog, what are you doing? You're normally not like this. You need to get it together. That way all these other squads aren't suffering because of you lacking. And Kafka is shook and is like, bro, what? This is Vice Captain Hoshina. And I was thinking the same exact thing, except boy, this Vice Captain Hoshina with some beautiful hair. I'm sorry, Soshiro, but you could never have hair that looks this luxurious. And on top of that, the manga described this dude as the best swordsman in all of creation. That was insane for me to see, bro. Obviously, we know that Hoshina's bloodline is one that has always been swordsman, but I have to imagine that Hoshina probably hasn't even tapped into what this old school samurai could have done. So I'm excited to see where Hoshina keeps on growing from here and what being the ultimate swordsman in creation really does mean, dog. But immediately afterwards, the Daikaiju falls and all the soldiers think that they have defeated this thing for good. until the Daikaiju from the Meireki era emerged out of this Daikaiju, the same way that it did to number 9. And once it emerged out of this Daikaiju, bro, it started running rampant and decimating anybody and everything in that area. The Ghost Samurai goes on to tell us that all the soldiers that day were forced to face that thing, and they had absolutely no way to defeat it. It was a sheerly, utterly humiliating defeat for these samurai. Kafka was so caught up in the moment that even he told everybody to get out of the way so that he could take that thing on, not realizing he's just in the flashback. This Daikaiju was killing everybody left and right, and we even see it stab straight through the chest of Hoshina's ancestor and eat him after that. And I have to imagine that it didn't just eat Hoshina's ancestor. This is probably where it absorbed Hoshina's ancestor, and it probably wanted to because he was the strongest swordsman in all of creation. The same exact way as this Daikaiju also wants Mina now, because she's a heavy artillery specialist, and she's the only one in Japan that can literally use, not Japan, in the world, that can use some of these weapons that she is using. She would be a huge asset to this Daikaiju of the Meireki era, the same way that Hoshina's ancestor was probably the same exact way, bro. A huge asset to this thing. And it broke my heart to see Kafka yelling to want to stop this Daikaiju, but he couldn't do anything. And even he saw himself that he was decimated. His legs get cut from underneath him, and he's just crying, looking out and reaching towards all his comrades that he saw fall that day. The Ghost Samurai goes on to talk about how all of the comrades, the families, the homes that they were supposed to return to, all of that stuff was destroyed by this Daikaiju of the Meireki era. And him and his soldiers were nothing but helpless that whole time. It shows soldiers fall into the water, and they all start to basically fuse together because of the hatred, the shame that they feel while they're fusing together. They become this kaiju, bro. Kaiju number 8, that is fueled by nothing more than shame and hatred for kaiju. This Daikaiju took everything from all those men that were so helpless to protect what they loved the most. And it makes so much sense now why Kaiju number 8 is fueled by hate, why it sees this Daikaiju from the Meireki era and immediately thinks to itself, I gotta kill Kaiju. It felt the presence of Kaiju number 2 coming from Isao, and it said, nah, kill Kaiju. I'm not letting Kaiju do this to any more humans. That is why we have a Kaiju that is fighting for the humans against Kaiju. And I actually think that this even ties in a little bit with what Kaiju number 9 was talking about multiple chapters ago. Because multiple chapters ago, Kaiju number 9 asked that huge list of questions. And one of the questions that he asked was, what happens if you expose humans to fault energy? And la Kaiju number 8 is what I think happens. I think that all of those samurai warriors that died that day, they all, basically their souls or whatever it is about them was fused together via fault energy, and it created one conglomerate, bro. This conglomerate ended up being that small insect that we know as the larva Kaiju number 8. Funny enough, maybe this Kaiju number 8 had to fuse with the human in order to bring out the powers that it had latent within it, bro. But yeah, man, that was really the end of the chapter. The end of the chapter was us seeing that all of these samurai warriors had so much shame. They all passed away, they all died, but they ended up becoming this Kaiju number 8 like insect, and my best guess is that this happened due to fault energy. Not only was this Daikaiju from the Meireki era around there releasing fault energy from itself naturally being a kaiju, but maybe where they got knocked into the ground at, there was a huge amount of fault energy in that place, and that is why we have created Kaiju number 8, dog. I think this is exactly what Kaiju number 9 was wondering, and it makes a lot of sense, right? It makes a lot of sense. So I don't really have a lot of predictions for next chapter, yo. I think that we're gonna have a little bit more conversation with this Ghost Samurai. We're not quite done talking to him yet and figuring out why we're doing what we're doing, but I do think that next chapter, the scientists like Kurusu, Okanogi, and all them over at headquarters are gonna say, hey, wait, we're starting to detect vital signs coming from the body of Kaiju number 8. And we are a few chapters away from seeing the craziest power-up that we have gotten in this series so far. Who knows what Kafka is going to be able to do after this, but I am lit to see it. I can't believe how bad I felt for those samurai warriors after one chapter, dog. The amount of goosebumps that I had. What a crazy backstory that is short, but has so much emotional effect on you. If you read this chapter and that didn't hit you in your chest a little bit, seeing Kafka yell out to try to save Hoshina's ancestor, see Kafka yell out to tell everybody else, get back, I will fight this thing, knowing that he can't do anything because this is a flashback. This already happened, dog. And this is why we are mad. This is why we need to form a stronger connection to go out and take out that Daikaiju of the Meireki era. Not only is it like, hey, this is why we're doing it, but it's a warning sign for Kafka, bro. If you don't get up and fight back, this is exactly what's going to happen to you and all your comrades. And Kafka will not let that happen. Narumi will not let that happen. Hoshina, Mina, Reno, Kikoru, Iharu, everybody, dog. We ain't letting that happen. But boy, does it look scary. Boy, does it look scary. So nah, man, if you watch this video, as always, arigato. And if you want to see any more content between now and another month from now, bro, we have another month break. Then let me know, because I'll post that on the channel. There's actually another popularity poll going on right now, so make sure to go and vote on that popularity poll if you care enough. I'm probably going to make another video about this popularity poll results whenever they drop. I remember 2 years ago whenever they did it, I made a 2023 like a New Year video that had like my top 23 favorite characters, and then just talked about the actual popularity poll. But yeah, just like I said, let me know if there's anything you want to see. Until then, I will catch y'all later. Peace.